About 19, I was almost 20 years old. Fentanyl had just become a thing, and it was like kind of coming out into the street, and I didn't know what it was, but I just knew you can get super high from taking it. So I ended up starting to take it, and I overdosed.
One day we'll forget.
Welcome to another powerful story in our recovery series. Today, we're diving into Enzo's journey, a story that proves you don't always have to want to get sober to find recovery. Enzo's addiction escalated fast, pulling him in deep. He was in the deep end of the ocean. After a near fatal overdose left him unable to walk or talk, Enzo was forced to sober up long enough for his thinking to clear, and that's when everything started to change. Oh, and don't miss part 2, where we'll hear from Enzo's mom and get her perspective on the chaos, the heartbreak, and the hope that brought their family through to the other side.
I leave against medical advice. Later that week, I overdose again. So that time was far more serious. Yeah, so I'm from Seattle, Washington. And I grew up in like a northern part of it, just right outside the border of like it was pretty much just like a city, you know. I lived in like a neighborhood, but I was so close to like a pretty metropolitan area. And family wise, I was super blessed to just have 2 parents that were super present, like, you know, and really, like, we never missed like a meal or did any kind of like, you know, anything like that. But you know, nobody was driving around in like Ferraris or anything, or you know, Porsches and stuff. So it was like a pretty normal, like, I'd say middle upper class.
Brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have a brother. So he's about 2.5 years.
Brother, what's your brother like? What's he like as personality, and what's your relationship with him like?
Yeah, so my brother, I'm super proud of him, and honestly, I'm grateful for the route that I went, because and I'm grateful for him also being the kind of guy who can learn from just seeing somebody else go through it. I'm not really that way. Like, I want to double check and make sure that like I believe that it's not gonna work if there's something that I want to try, you know. And he's a barber, so he started cutting hair in the locker room of his basketball locker room in like middle school or early high school, and just completely stuck with it. And so now has been cutting hair for like 10 years and helps other barbers to cut, you know, to learn his process and like social media, how to market your business as a barber. And he honestly is killing it. So he has really high-end clientele, like NBA basketball stars and Seahawks and things like that. Yeah, so he absolutely saw what I did and just said, I'm gonna do the full opposite. Like, I'm gonna be an athlete. I'm gonna stick to school hard and like behave myself for the most part, you know. And I'm super grateful for that, because he could have easily joined me on the route that I went, and, you know, but he decided, like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I would go back and do everything twice just to make sure that he stays on the same route. Yeah, so my mom is the boss. She's a total boss lady. She's been that way forever. And I remember something about her when she'd come home, I'd always know she'd be home, because I'd hear her high heels like clacking on the floor upstairs, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, my mom's home, you know. And so she's always been a boss lady for sure. Like, you know, I don't know how else to describe her.
So when you say boss, I have an image in my mind. Do you mean like a business lady? Do you mean like sure of herself and assertive?
Boss lady, like, is the best way to describe her, but like a loving lady, you know, like. And I think she gets it from my grandmother. My grandmother was a nurse, and she eventually was teaching nursing classes in the college and stuff. And like, I guess, you know, something that I've noticed about my grandmother and my mother is like, they are focused on like what they're doing, and like they have a task in mind and they continue on that task. And I don't know if she got it from my grandmother. I think she must have, but she's really a boss. Like, she handles things, and I think she's proud of herself for that. Like, I think she likes that about herself, I'd say. I'm not sure, but that she carries herself that way, and she's
So she's focused, assertive, opinionated.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, and she's impossible to buy a gift for. So like on Mother's Day, that's another thing that was characteristic of her is like on Mother's Day, any holiday, like if I'm buying a gift for her, I have to call I have to call her husband, I have to talk to my dad from back when they were together. Like I have to figure out like because she's very specific, like very particular, and it's a nightmare to buy a gift for her. Oftentimes, I just give her a gift card most of the time because it's so difficult to get something that she likes.
What's your dad like?
Yeah, my dad, he's there's a saying that's like the gift of gab. So, he's got the ultimate gift of gabs. He's been a career salesman for basically his whole life. Never sold cars, so he's not like a cornball salesman kind of guy. No disrespect to like car salesmen who may be listening, or if you have a dad who's a car salesman, but like he's the kind of guy who just like is gifted with talking, and he'll talk to anybody, like no matter what, wherever he's at, he's always like striking up a conversation and like kind of like shooting the shit with anybody. And so that's my dad, and he he's a hilarious guy too. And he's probably still one of the most like playful guys, even though he's like 60 years old. He's playful like he's a child, you know. And so that's
Ship like with each of them.
as a kid, I always seemed to like have disagreements. It just seemed like her and I would just clash a lot. And I don't know what it was. Like I think whenever I think about like rules being enforced, or like told to like watch my tone with her, or something like that. Like and I think kids should be told these things and there should be rules. But like I always remember having those like battles with my mom. And and I think she was a little more concerned too about me like in academics and stuff like that, cuz basically like I would always be going to therapy and to psychiatrists and like counselors and things like that. And I remember doing that since a very young age. And there wasn't ever really, something additional. It's like there wasn't ever like a conversation like, hey Enzo, like because of your behavior you're going to go to see a behavioral counselor or therapist or something like that. Like I just remember I learned about like where I was basically one day because I read on the door it said like something behavioral therapy, something like that. And I was like, man, I'm like in fourth grade. Like, why am I in a behavioral therapist's office? I didn't understand what a behavioral therapist office, but I understood that it was something about my behavior. It's not at school too. I wasn't like ever really a troublemaker until I was probably in like middle school. Um, but I wasn't ever a star student. So I can never remember a time like in middle or high school or elementary school where I was like, sweet, like I can't wait to go to school. Like I always disliked school, yeah.
What about with your dad? What was your relationship like with him?
Yeah, so my dad, it seemed like we were always super close. So I just I don't know, there's an interesting I can speculate on why that was, but I'm not really quite sure. Um I never felt like nervous when my dad was like around, like I would always but my mom, I would like hear the clack, clack, clack of the high heels. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I gotta like straighten up, like, yeah, make sure I'm not like goofing around, and so, that's sort of the dynamic there. We tried a lemonade stand one time, but then I was frustrated that I had to pay back my friend's mom because she funded us to get the lemonade and whatnot. And then when it came to the end of the day, we had like $26 or whatever it was. And I remember I was so frustrated that I had to pay this lady for the original investment that she made. And I was like, and then I figured like, but gosh, I got to figure out how I don't have to do that, how to not need that, And so I just always have had this kind of a mindset, where I just want to create things for myself and I don't want to rely on somebody else. Like, and I want to have somebody funding me. I don't want the bank to be holding me hostage for debt that I owe, and I've always just had that. Cutting business was in elementary school, and then the middle school was candy, and then early in high school, I did try and sell laptop chargers, because our school would give us like school issued laptops, but if you lost your charger, it was expensive to replace it. So I ordered a bunch from China and I was selling them for like half price what the school would replace it for. And so kids were buying these chargers from me, and we had a little hustle doing that. So there's always been a phase of entrepreneurship.
I think I read in your timeline a major event was your parents separating. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. I think I was 11 years old, so right at the end of like elementary school, and my parents just sat me and my brother down one day, and I remember they were like, "We're gonna leave." They went to like get a game plan together, I guess, and left. They were like, "You guys are gonna stay here for a couple minutes. We're just gonna go down the street and like talk, and we'll be back." And that was really unnormal because my mom was never the one to just leave me and my brother alone in the home. And so they left and they came back and they just said, "Yeah, hey, we're just gonna sit down." And we sat down and they said, your dad, we're gonna try having your dad move out." And that was really when that was the last time we ever talked about it.
Did that feel like it came out of nowhere, or could you sense trouble? I mean, I know you were young, so
Mhm. I don't know. I mean, I parents argue, much other people's parents argue, but I imagine that everybody's parents argue to a certain degree. And I remember my parents would argue, but I don't remember it being like a daily thing or like a weekly thing even. It would just happen from time to time, and I felt like it was a normal amount of time. I don't know in anybody else's home to know whether it was like a normal amount or not, but it didn't seem more frequent than I imagined it would be for other parents.
you.
It was a curveball. Yeah, absolutely. So, being 11, I wasn't super in touch with how I was feeling really. I just kind of felt what I did and frustrated because you go from seeing both parents every day, and knowing that to be normal, to now you see one parent throughout the week, and then on the weekend you see the other one in a whole different space. They're not together anymore, and you don't. I didn't think about it too much after probably like the first year. It was just kind of like, all right, this is permanent now, and just that's how it's gonna.
I think in your timeline you talked about having gotten these new friends, or these friends you
Uh,
said you felt like you were all similar in a situation and you relied on each
mhm.
other as a family. When did that
My middle school, I had a bunch of friends since like second grade when I moved to this neighborhood, that were all my age, and we were exactly the same grade and everything, and we grew up super close. And I always imagined like I'd probably be in the retirement home with these guys, and like I'm gonna go to all their weddings and whatnot, and like we were all super close. All of our parents knew each other too, so like all the moms would get together and like go to this one Mexican restaurant. Like basically in middle school, I kinda is when I started smoking weed, and, all of the original friends that I had, those ones that were all super close together and lived nearby, they all kinda turned their back on me, to put it lightly, in, like, freshman year, and,
because you were smoking weed or because of something else?
well, so I got caught a handful of times because I was smoking weed, and I guess I was less careful than my friends, and, mind you, like, everybody was smoking weed in that friend group, it was not just me, but I really liked it, like, I guess I liked it more or something, and for whatever reason, I would get caught from time to time, and, like, eventually the parents got wind of me being the weed smoker out of the so the thing that happened was, in freshman year, they all were like, "We're not like, I'm sorry, dude, like, we just can't hang out with you." And I'd hear about them hanging out and they're smoking weed themselves, and I'm like,
Mm.
"How does this make any sense?" Like, so I've always been like a guy who, like, I'm gonna make the decision for myself. Like, when somebody tells me something, like, I'll consider that, but my decision is gonna come from my own intuition telling me, like, this is the right thing to do, or, like, this is what I wanna do, and this is how that makes sense, and it seemed that my friends kind of heard that their parents didn't want them to hang out with me, and just blindly accepted that, like, parameter to who they can hang out with, and I was so frustrated because I was like, "Dude, like, if my mom told me don't hang out with you, but I like you, I'm gonna hang out with you." Like, I'm not, and so I was just super frustrated that now I'm here left alone because my friends are just obeying their parents to not hang out. I remember there was a day where we used to get off the bus and we would sit on the corner and stand, and we would just right there, we'd all talk. It was me and 2 friends that lived on the same street, and we would get off the bus and stand right there, and we would talk and talk and talk and talk all for, however long. And then the day I realized something had changed was when I was the last one to get off the bus, and both of my friends that would normally have stood there on the corner with me were just already walking home. And I remember I got off the bus and I saw both of them walk. This is really unusual. Like, this is something that, and that's when I kinda knew, like, wow, like, there's something changing here. And so that whole kinda situation, and maybe they were busy that day or whatever the case may have been, but it was not a typical thing for that to happen. And so I, uh, I spent a really long I played Xbox just a bunch, and I was just smoking weed. All my friends have left me, and then my dad is moving from place to place, and so I'm pissed that, like, he got the short end of the stick, and after they divorced, my mom has this house that's, like, the same house, and my dad has, like, a F-150 truck. And, like, I'm like, "How does that add up? Like, why is he moving around from place to place, and he seems like he's going through it, like, to the worst degree, and my mom here is, like, remarried now and has this same house, doesn't seem to be struggling in any way, and maybe she was, and she has that boss lady, like, mentality, right? So, like, she might have put up a disguise or whatever it was, but, there was no visible sign of, like, real struggle on her part, but for my dad, that wasn't the case. So I was frustrated about that, and my dad's moving around from place to place, and so I'm not seeing him as often as I'm seeing my mom, and but my friends who are available 24/7 are down to hang out, and they're down to kick it no matter what.
So the loyalty,
Yeah,
really
loyalty,
felt and you needed that at that
yeah.
time in your life. Okay.
Yeah, and just the presence and, like, the additional factor was, like, these guys were hustlers, like, they were making money and they were driving around in cars, and I'm like, "Dang, bro, like, how do you guys do that? Like, what you're always doing some fun thing, like going to a party at some other school's party or whatever, you're in some other area hanging out with all these other people." And so I was like, "Well, it's a clear choice that I wanna have fun, and I wanna hustle, and I wanna, like, hang out." So, that's kinda how we all fell into each other's arms, really. Like, we just all were hanging out because we all provided that for each other, right? Like, these kids didn't really feel like they had anybody really on their side either except for each other. So, that's how that kinda dynamic played out.
And how was the situation between you and your mom during this whole time period?
So, yeah, my mom was probably panicked. I mean, she saw me go from hanging out with kids that she knew their parents, and she understood, like, kind of what the family was like, and, like, what the we generally have the same family rules and
Mhm.
whatnot, um, and now she's got no clue, and, like, I'm hanging out with people all day that she doesn't know, and I'm going off the grid for, like, 2 days, don't come home for, like, 2 days, and don't answer the phone.
You're going empty days at a time as a teenager?
Oh my gosh, yeah, 2 days at a time was, like, a light one. Like, we would sometimes go to different states, and, like, we'd be going from I'm from Seattle, right? We would go down to Portland and hang out for the weekend, hang out with some people down there. We would go down to I went to California one time for, like, a couple weeks when it was just off the grid. No, it was, like, a Tuesday, and my friends were like, "Do you wanna go to Cali? Like, we have a spot, we can stay down there." And I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And so we just that day go to California. I remember I went home and just packed a bag and then and so my mom was, of course, she was calling, and, like, my dad was then calling and, like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "Listen, I'm in California." And they're like, Excuse me, like, are you serious? Like, what like, how are you in California? Like, where, in Cal," like, and I'm like, "Dude, I'll be home in a little while." Like, and so we would do things like that, and so I'm sure she was cons
Alright, so then what happens in your story? Take us from
yeah.
there.
I mean, I was basically, a major thing that happened at that point was my mom saw all this craziness going on,
Yeah.
and She tried to take my phone, I would buy my own phone. She tried to take my car, my friend's got a car. Like, we can go wherever and, like, "Okay, so you got your own phone, I'm gonna cancel the phone bill, though." "Okay, fine, I'll get on a family plan with my friend, and we'll be, good to go." And so, like, I was like, she's telling me you're grounded, I just leave anyway. And so with a kid like that, like, there is no consequence that that kid is gonna accept. Like, the school can bring me to the principal's office, like, you can send me to the truancy court for skipping school. I was familiar with the truancy court, and nothing was really having an impact. So my mom was so concerned eventually after the California trip, because I was gone for so long, that she was like, "Okay, I need to have some kind of intervention, and we're gonna send this kid to Wilderness."
Okay. Was she aware that there was, like, substances in the mix or no?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she would 100%. Because it got to a point where I just didn't really mind coming home smelling like a bunch of weed or come home drunk. I show up I was gone for, like, a weekend. I show up on Sunday, and the only reason, honestly, I came home was because the school had been remodeled, and I hadn't been to school for, like, a month, and so the school had been remodeled, and I was like, "I wanna see what this new building is like, so I'm just gonna go to school tomorrow." So I show up Sunday night, and, like, I got transported to the Wilderness, and so that means that, like, 2 giant dudes came in the room, and my mom and dad are there, and they basically explained, like, "Hey, you're gonna be going to a program in Utah, and we
Yeah.
love you, but, like, you just are off the wall. Like, you."
I don't know, they call them, like, sober escorts or sober transport, like, it's like a lot of kids I know that have had that, they get woken up in the middle of the night, it's like kidnapped, like, you get taken, but you got taken from school?
No, it was at night. I only went home because I was going to go to school the next day because I had decided I wanna check out this new building, right? And so they did come in the middle of the night, and it was like a 3 in the morning thing, and I remember I was so something had my mom kinda tipped me off because normally I would come home and she didn't say anything, but I came home all drunk, and she was being so nice to me. She was being so nice to me. I was like, "This is really unnormal." Like, my mom was the type, like, I told you, boss lady, like, if there's an issue, she's gonna handle it, like, now, like, we're gonna deal with that, like,
Yeah.
and so
So you were
I'm
expecting to be in a lot of trouble, like, you were expecting to get it.
I was expecting to get into, like, a shouting match or, get a lecture, of some sort or something.
Mhm,
That's just normally what would happen,
mhm.
and, I got home and she was just there and, like, super sweet with me, like, she was like, "Hey, Enzo, like, do you want me to make you some food even?" Like, she offered me food, and I'm like, "Holy crap," like,
She knows this is your last meal, but you're like,
she
"What is up?"
she knew what was gonna happen, and so I'm like, "This is really alarming for me because 'cause I'm like, "This has never happened before." I've never been so warmly welcomed, to the house, and part of that was kinda like that's a little bit of why I was just gone for so long because I would just push it as far as I could because I
Mhm.
didn't wanna come home and have. Yeah. Yeah, and, like, I don't expect her to, like, have dealt with it any differently because, like, what is she supposed to do? Like, she doesn't know. She doesn't know what to do, and she's in this position where, like, her kid is completely off the hook, and
Oh,
so
yeah,
I don't.
any mom would freak out if their kid was going
Yeah,
MIA for days at a time.
for
Sure.
days and weeks at a time in a new state. Like, we would go to Portland, so, I mean, what are you supposed to do with a kid like that? Like, she was losing her mind, and so I get home, they bring me so the transporters, they told me, "Listen, you can fight, and, like, you can try and run, and, like, we're gonna get you, and what we'll do is we'll just tie you with a zip tie, and we'll go through it. We have paperwork to make sure that, like, nobody can stop that and everything." And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay, well, and so what's the other option?" They're like, "Well, so you can just cooperate and be cool, and we'll let you smoke on the way down. So you can smoke cigarettes from time to time on the way down." I'm like, "Give me the cigarettes." So I took the cigarette deal, and we headed down to Utah. So eventually I get to Utah, and, I'm in the wilderness, and I've never been camping one day. I was like a city kid. Like, I've never been involved in the outdoors really too much, was never even really like an athlete
Okay,
to a real degree.
let me pause you for a
So
second. So,
mhm, mhm,
I wanna find out what you're thinking when the when the kidnappers come, because these people
mhm,
just if you're watching and you don't know, these people are professionals. Like, some of them are, like, policemen is their main job, some of them. Some of 'em are in recovery, but they have, like, systems down, like, some
Snappers really because they really have no negative intent. Like there's they were, but right, they understand like yeah. So
yeah,
but basically they tell me that I'm like okay, listen, like give me the cigarettes, like let's just go.
yeah,
And I wasn't too nervous because like I understood like these people aren't really gonna hurt me. Like they're bringing me to a camp. Like I knew my behavior was like a little bit crazy, you know, and so I was kinda like, "Alright, let's like, whatever, this is what it is."
mhm,
And so the thing that I didn't appreciate was that they were telling me, "Oh, yeah, like, there's gonna be girls out there, like, it's gonna be like a 3-week camp, like, you're just gonna go out, there's gonna be girls there, and they're gonna let you smoke cigarettes there and everything, so you're just gonna get through." And I was still pissed. 'Cause I was like, "Man, 3 weeks?" I'm like, "You're kidding me." I'm like, "I have to like, what do you are you serious?" And so, I get there and then, like, it was the normal, you know, we go to the airport, whatever, it wasn't anything, like, insane on the way. And so, I get to the wilderness, and I'm, like, asking a kid the first day I was just like, "Man, I'm pissed. Like, I
mhm.
can't believe I'm out here." Then I'm realizing, like, there's no girls out here, and they took my cigarettes. So, I'm like, "This is crazy," you know? And so, I'm like I asked a kid, I'm like, "Yo, dude," I'm like, "How long have you been here?" And he goes, 5 weeks. And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, 5 weeks? So I'm like, "When are you gonna leave?" He's like, "I don't know, they won't tell me." And I'm like, "Excuse me, bro?" I'm like, They're not telling you when you're gonna." I'm like, "How long am I gonna be out here?" So I ask another kid, "How long he been here?" He goes, 9 weeks. And I'm like,
The panic is setting in now,
"So
like,
it's
"Oh,
hitting
the
me."
reality." Okay.
And so I'm pissed. Yeah, I'm like, not just like I'm not even just like I am nervous about like how long this is gonna work out, but I'm more frustrated about like how is this all like how is this all gonna work out? Like this makes no sense.
Mhm,
And so um basically I was pretty much a nightmare for the staff. Like all
okay.
the staff that were out there, like I made sure to give them a hard time because the thing about it was like when I was previously like what juvenile detention was called, it
Mhm,
me and my friends we would call that daycare. So, if you go to daycare, like, you don't get to come back and talk about a story that happened in there or anything, like, it's play time, like, you just go like, go to recess, you know what I
mhm,
mean? And so, nobody cared about that, like so, I'm out here and I'm in this, like, camp, and I'm like, "Dude, this is worse than what daycare sounds like." I'm like, "This is way worse." Yeah, I'm like, "This is wild, dude. They're making me pick up a backpack and I have to hike all day." I'm like, "And I have to lay under a tarp to sleep. Like, this is insane, dude. And they're not even telling me how long I'm gonna be here. Like, the judge will at least let me know, like, this is how long, you know." And so I was freaking out, yeah. And so I was like, "This is pretty much the worst it's gonna get for me." And so I was like, Why not just cause hell?" So I was a real nightmare for the staff, really, for like the first probably half of my stay because it just couldn't get worse. You know,
What
I'm
kinda
like,
stuff did you do? Were you just argumentative? Did you try to run? Like, what did you do?
yeah, I mean, whatever it was, I would poke the I'm not like a dumb kid. I would never say like I was a dumb kid. I didn't like school, but I was like a pretty like intuitive, like I could understand
Mhm,
people really well. And so like
mhm,
I would target certain staff that were like more prone to their egos were kind of tied to what they do. And I
mhm,
would target them for that. And I would be like, bro, you think you're gonna make a difference? I'm like, dude, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna do the exact same thing. And they would be like, they would get mad. They'd think because they're really invested in like changing my
mhm,
life and whatnot. And so I would just target and it was super easy to get on certain staff. I remember certain staff that weren't really in great control of their own like situation. I would love that kind of person because I'm out here and I'm just taking any chance I can to have any kind of like control
yeah, you're
in my life.
antagonizing, you're, like,
Yeah.
analyzing, like, which one's the weak link and pushing all the
For
buttons.
sure, for
Okay.
sure, and sometimes it was even, like, the lead staff, like, I would be like, "Oh, he thinks he's the big dog, like, in the wilderness." I'm like, "Guess what? Like, we're gonna see what." And so, I'd rally the troops, like, I'd have all my buddies out there who I became pretty close with over that time, like, we would all kinda like, I would make sure to do whatever I could, and, like, oftentimes, they would send me out of the group because I would be so problematic, they would be like, "Alright, Enzo, so the consequence was, like, you have to go and be separate from the group for, like, the day." And
Dude, I
so,
I dealt with teenagers for the first 10 years of my career in an inpatient and intensive outpatient. I never had anybody be that antagonistic. You were really like
yeah, well, because it can't get any worse for me. I'm like, this is like the worst situation. What do I have to lose? Yeah, I'm gonna go to daycare if anything. That's like the next worst. That's like, but
so
it
you're
doesn't even
almost,
seem that
like,
bad.
trying to get, like, maybe they'll just arrest me and I'll go to day okay.
Well, I knew they were gonna do everything they could to keep me there. I knew it wasn't that was gonna be like the very last resort, and I didn't ever want to like hurt anybody. I never wanted to like pick a rock up and like bang it on somebody's head. Like I never wanted to do that, but I was like, I was not gonna make it easy. Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, and like now, it's crazy because I look at it now and I say, wow, like what remarkable people who were working in the woods. Like they were putting up with me and probably a lot of other kids that were similar to me, and they still do this after years of this. Like they still
I
try
know.
to help these kids out,
You're
and
dealing with, like, bad kids basically, or kids with bad attitudes, let me say
you're
that,
dealing with
and you're
problematic
in the
kids.
woods and you're d yeah.
You've got no reprieve. Like you are literally gonna be with that kid for a week, and he's gonna do what he can to frustrate you,
Wow, yeah.
and your job is to be cool and
Mhm,
actually try and help the kid.
mhm.
And so I'm super grateful for those people, and I honestly and I went actually back and did a speaking event at that program that I went to
Wow.
recently. I had the most fun day out
Mhm,
of, like, probably, one of the most fun days in recent history was going and talking to the clinical team, to the staff, and then also to the kids out there, and, um yeah, so I'm just super grateful for them, and I even met, I re-met, like, one of the guys who I was with out there. He was a staff at the time and was
mhm.
now on the clinical team, and I was just like, "Man, it's so good." We took a picture together and everything, um but yeah, that was you know, that was kinda how that first half of that experience went,
Okay.
and then halfway through, I realized, like, "Alright, like, this isn't working." Like, like, this battle that I have, like, I would still do it with the certain
Uh-huh,
staff that would frustrate me because there were
uh-huh.
staff that I didn't get along with.
Right.
They weren't, like, very common, but there were staff from time to
Mhm,
time that I would get along with, and, but eventually what happened was I was like, "Man, you know what? I need to just, like I'm just gonna, like, just like, fuck it." I'm like, "Fuck it." Like, I'm just gonna have to be out here. Yeah, like, but I was never one to, like, lie and say, like, "Oh, hey, I wanna change my life." Like, I always wanted to, like, make my point clear and, like, how I
mhm.
felt was always clear. As soon as I get out of here, like, I'm gonna do this. Like, I'm not gonna make it that difficult for you today, but what I'm gonna do is when I get out of here, I hope it's clear that, like, I'm gonna run from whatever program they send me to.
Okay,
Like,
so you stopped instigating on purpose, and you probably went through the requirements, but you weren't you weren't lying about your intentions. You were being totally upfront and honest.
no, I was never I've never been a real big liar. Like, I've always been a guy who's just gonna say what my goal is. Like, it's pretty clear. Most people that know me know where I'm going in life and, like, how I'm feeling in general. Like, it's really me when I'm me, you know? And so, I told him, like, "Guys, I'm gonna do this, whatever it is. Like, you want me to, like, make a tarp into a tent, like, I'll do it. But, just so that you know, like, my mindset is I'm still me, like, for sure." Thing I did ask, and this is part of kind of like a result that happened, like, right then in the wilderness. A big part of what they preached and what I'm really grateful for that I took from it was being present. So, like, being present in the moment today, like, that is a major advantage for anybody, and, like, even not even just today, like, what are you doing right now? That is very important to just be present doing that. And so what happened was I'd see these kids, other kids, they're getting, like, notified, like, 2 weeks in advance that they're gonna be leaving. And I'm like, "Dude," I saw that happen a couple times. I told the staff, I'm like, "Guys, if you can just give me one request, please. Do not tell me when I'm gonna be leaving until that day or the day before. I can't know." Like, I just can't because I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna start thinking about where I'm going and, like, where I'm gonna be and when it's gonna happen, and it's gonna make every moment tick by just a little bit slower, and I'm gonna start becoming I was like, I'll become problematic, and
Yeah,
so
because 'cause you're gonna start checking out, emotionally, like, yeah.
100%.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna be present in the moment, and that was the only real thing that kind of, like, kept me from breaking down all the time in the wilderness was hiking. Like, we would just hike 6 days a week. And
That was really
like,
insightful for you to understand that about yourself at the time.
now looking back, I'm like, wow, bravo, Enzo. Like, gosh, like, yeah. And so the staff probably said the same thing. They were like, dang, okay, he's actually like in touch with like how he's gonna be. And so it was super helpful that they actually didn't tell me until the night before. They were like, in the morning, you're gonna go, you're leaving. And I'm like, I actually cried. I was so happy to leave. I was like, I'm like, thank God.
Today's the day. Yeah.
Was one of the main things that I took right away was like being present, and like that was it. And then, like later on when we kind of get into like when things changed in life in general for me, I'll go back and we can talk about like the things that I took and now realize came from the wilderness. But yeah, one day they told me the night before, they said, tomorrow there's a truck that's gonna come, you're gonna be leaving. And I was just thrilled.
So how long had you been there? Like, how long were you end up being there?
I think it was somewhere close to 10 weeks.
10 weeks. So
Hmm.
you were told 3 weeks, they'll be cute girls, you can smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
Boy, was
Smoke
that not the
cigarettes.
case. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm like, but I had already accepted, like, they lied, days I realized, like, I got tricked into that, but there was nothing I could do anyway.
Like, at first, I thought they told you something that maybe they thought was the case, but then when you said what they said,
No,
I was like, "Oh, they knew that wasn't the case."
100% they knew
They
exactly what
just
was gonna
straight
happen.
up lied to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
a full on
Okay.
deceit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Purposeful.
but I
Okay.
don't blame them. I don't blame them because it made their job easier and they had a pure intention.
Yeah,
So
their job
I
is just to get you from point A to point B, and they do it in a way to try not to be combative or argumentative and try to keep things cool, so I get it,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and I wasn't combative or argumentative because I was like, "All right," and they let me smoke cigarettes, and so I'm like, "Okay," like, I take it, like, I'm gonna take it. And so I just that's how it went, but yeah, so then came the first boarding school experience.
After Treehab, they sent you to boarding school, which
Rehab,
is
I've never heard about that, that's a
that's
nice
what they call it around here. Okay, so
yeah, I
then you
love that, yeah.
to boarding school. Okay, yeah, let's hear about boarding school.
I get to a boarding school, and it's like a therapeutic boarding school. I went to, like, one of the most well-respected ones in, like, the industry,
These things
and
are
so
very, like, expensive.
this was one that was, their main focus was cognitive behavioral therapy. So, like, the goal is to, like, get the kid to behave in a way that's gonna influence his thoughts, that's gonna influence his feelings, and then will influence his behavior, so it's like a cycle. And it worked, like, I loved it. Like, I loved now looking back because all I did was just go to the gym all the time. And that was the first time I'd ever been working out and, like, going to the gym, and I really enjoyed it. But that first day, I was like, "Man, I could just bolt, like, right now. Like, why don't I just do it right now?" But then I was like, "Let me think about it," because at the moment, you had to remember, I can't even point to Utah on the map.
So
So
you're like, "Let me get a plan together at least, like, let me
yeah,
think
I'm
this
like,
through."
"Let me just think a little bit, and I'll figure it out. Like, I don't need to do it today." And so I go back inside, so I start talking to the guys there, and they're telling me like, "Yeah, dude, like, if you just behave yourself a little bit, like, they'll give you a home visit." And I'm like, "Dude, like, you're kidding me." I'm like, "They're gonna fly me back to Seattle?" And they're like, "Yeah, dude, just here's the thing." They told me there was a
You
whole
can see
system.
your wheels turning right now, like,
Yeah.
I can see the plan,
I'm like, "Oh, really?" I'm like,
okay.
"Perfect." Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, let me know how to achieve that." And
I'll
so
go home, I'll call my friends up, I'll be out of
oh,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so they said, yeah, like, if you just misbehave at first a little bit and then you stop, it's gonna make you look good because it looks like there's some kind of, like, effect happening here.
Transformation, right.
Right, and so I'm like, "Okay, I can do that for sure." And so I
Like, the
get out
kids
there.
told you that or the staff told you
Uh-huh.
that?
No, the
The
kids
kids
told me.
told you
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, the staff would never have told you. So I go out there and I'm like, I'm getting in a little bit of trouble here and there, like, I'm using the phone to call my friends, like, on this, like, sneaking on the phone because they had, like, a phone that we used to call a family on, like, a certain, like, we have family calls, and so you're allowed to call home your family, obviously. So I'm sneaking on that thing, calling my friends, like, get caught, own up to it, like, right away, just say, like, "Yeah, I was doing it," and, like, smoke a cigarette. I found a cigarette on the ground one time, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, like, let me just smoke that." So I took it, hit it, like, smoked it, and whatever, just told on myself. Like, I was like, "Yeah, I smoked a cigarette." And eventually, yeah, I got a home visit, and that's exactly what I did. I did exactly what I said I was gonna do in the wilderness. And in the boarding school, obviously, I was a little bit more careful to make my intentions as clear as they were, like, but in the wilderness, I did exactly what I said I was gonna do,
Well, you had to
and
get your home visit.
I had
Yeah,
to get my home visit.
you had to
Yeah, I
get your
had to
home
do it.
visit, so you had to be smart, okay.
Yeah, yeah, and my friends, like, mind you, my friends are, like, mobile. Like, we go to California, we go to Portland, like, we'll go to different areas, and, like, they were gonna come get me, but I was like, "Dude, listen, like, the police are going to be all over us the whole ride back if you come drive down here. So I'm like, let's just wait till I get a flight up there, and it's going to make the job 2 times as easy. And because I'm sneaking on the
You
phone and
are like
talking
a
to these guys.
very strategic thinker.
Yeah, I was thinking that way forever. I was
No, I'm
always thinking
thinking
that way.
I'm listening to your story, like, as a kid selling the candies and the
Mhm.
haircuts and the everything you're doing is the way you're interacting with the staff. You're super strategic.
To accept the compliment though, because it's just how I think. It's not really like something that I learned to do, and I'm sure I got better at doing it over the years, but
But most kids
it's
that
been
age
in
make
me.
more of an emotional decision, and
Mhm.
I mean, you're thinking it through. I mean, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, I knew there was gonna be a plan. Like, I had to have a plan, you know what I mean? And I've always been one to try and, because something about me is, like, if I'm gonna do something, I wanna, like, I'm
So
gonna
you
make
get that
sure.
from your mom and grandma.
I guess so, yeah,
That whole,
and
like,
my
I'm
dad
thinking
too. I mean, my
dad
dad too,
too?
he
Okay.
in
He's like
business,
that
like,
too? Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's like, you're gonna, whatever you do, you're gonna do it well, you know? Like, and so I'm like, "Okay," and so I just waited to get my home visit, and, like, what happened was, like, my old friends from, like, 2nd grade, the good ones, like, they all came in one wave to come visit me, and the rule was, like, "Enzo, you're not allowed to leave the house, but your friends can come and visit you." I'm like, "No problem." Like, I'm okay with that. So all the good ones come over, and they're like, "Hey," like, we're hanging out. They're like, "Dang, man, like, what the hell? Like, you kinda went wild there for a little bit." And I was like, "Yeah, man, da da da," you know, and so then the next group of friends come over, and they're like, "Bro, like, what the hell? Like, where" they're like, "Where have you been? What have you been doing? Da 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 da." And I'm like,
Yeah, because
"Dude,
to them, you just fell off the map, and they wouldn't have known where or what happened or
I had
whatever.
no clue." Yeah, and you know, and, like, before, we were together every day. Like, it was a daily thing that we were spending time with each other for the whole day. So, on the 2nd day of me not answering my phone, so these guys came to my house and knocked on my door, and mind you, like, they the kind of are, like, super presentable to a parent, so they were nervous, and they knew that. So, like, they were nervous to come to my house, but they were worried about me because I hadn't answered the phone. So, they showed up at my house, and my mom just told them, "Yeah, he's gone. Like, he's in a boarding school, like, he's gone, and just forget about it." Yeah, and so they were like, and the whole time I'm in the wilderness and I'm in the boarding school, I was like, "Man, like, are they gonna forget about me?" Like, because 'cause I'm craving their loyalty, you know, I love these guys, and so they're effectively my family. And so, basically what happened was I end up, like, checking Instagram one day in the boarding school, and I snuck on the computer, and they had posted, like, "Free Enzo." Like, so they were, because they were like, "He's gone, he's missing, we don't know where he is, like, let him back," you know, like, "Bring him back," and so they so I checked that, and it was, like, from a week before, and I'd been gone for, like, close to 6 months, or, like, 3, 4 months
You're
at
like,
some
"Oh,
point.
they still miss
I
me."
was like, I almost cried. Yeah, I did. I was like, "This is, like, really meaningful," because I'm like, "Dude, I wasn't sure if they were gonna remember me." And so I was like, "Wow." So I get back and they're like, "Man," they were like, "Dude, like, what happened?" So I tell them what happened, and then they were like, "Okay, wow, that's crazy." And I had one friend who I was the closest with, the first friend that I met, and he goes, "Yeah, man, listen, like, I'm not gonna tell you what to do, but if you wanna trap it out, like, if you wanna, like, leave and, like, go on and run," he's like, "I'm gonna be here with you." I was like, "Okay, like, say no more. That's what we're gonna do." So I did that, and I just grabbed all my bags and we just bolted.
How long were you at the residential school before you got the home visit?
Before I got the home visit, it was about 3 months.
So you did about 3 months, you come home, you see the old good friends, then the newest friends come in, and one says, "Hey, man, you wanna be broke out? I'll get you out of here."
Yeah, he was just like, "Dude, listen, like, I'm not gonna tell you," and to his credit, he didn't tell me what to do. He didn't, like, force me. I was gonna do it either way.
He didn't really, like, encourage you to do it, he just said, "I got you if you do."
He just said, "If you wanna do it, I'll be here with you. Like, I'll help you," you know? And so I'm like, "Okay, that's all I need to hear." I bolt, and so party it up for a couple days, you know what I mean, around the area. My mom's like, "What's going on? Like, I can't believe this." Like, she's freaking out, of course. And I was just like, "Listen, like, the last time that I left this house, it was against my will. This time it's gonna be me who decides to leave." And so, like, it can't get any more clear than that. Like, I'm gonna do what I wanna do. And so I basically, we go and we party it up. I'm staying from friend to friend's house. Eventually, like, the police start showing up around, because I'm a minor still. And so the police are showing up at my friend's house, and a friend called me, and this friend has now passed away from an overdose, actually. He called me, and he called my friend, because I didn't have a phone. Anyway, he calls my friend, And I saw the look on his face when he answered the phone. He goes, like, his face totally changed. And he was like, put Enzo on the phone. So he puts me on the phone. He's like, dude, there's police at my house right now. They don't have a search warrant, but they're trying to search the place. And my parents aren't letting them, but like, you got to get out of wherever you're at. I'm like, okay. So I'm looking through the blinds in the window, and an unmarked police car pulls up, and the lady jumps out with a gun and a not like in her hand, like ready to raid the house, but like she's got a gun on her hip and she's got paperwork in her hands. And I'm like, all right, like here he goes. And so like my friend goes down to answer the door and doesn't let him come in, so they don't have like a search warrant or anything. So I'm like trying to get in the attic. I can't get in the attic because there was like a barrier. Anyway, I can't get in the attic. So I'm just hiding behind the door of a room. Like hopefully they won't close the door and check behind the door. So I'm just hiding behind the door. Anyway, they go and they leave. But they were like parked at the end of the street. So I jumped out through the back like after 2 hours. I grab my stuff, jump over the fence in the back, like jump over another fence, and then I end up at this McDonald's. I buy a little phone that you can just load minutes on. And I just texted my friend. I told him, dude, we got to leave the state. Like we have to leave. Like they're all over me here.
You're like literally on the run. Like you're like
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, fully on the run and like ready to do it. Like was not even nervous that like I can't pull this off. I was just like, dude, we have to leave. So we leave, and that night we got on the bus that used to run from Seattle to Portland. And so we jump on the bus. I end up in Portland, and I was just basically staying down there for probably like 2 weeks. And I envisioned that being the beginning of me living like on my own. So I was like, there's just no way I'm going to go back home, because like it could happen again. These dudes can just show up and just take me to wherever they want to take me. So yeah, so I'm like, yeah, okay, we gotta go to Portland. So I'm in Portland and I'm staying down there, and I'm like, my cousins are down there, and my older cousin was like kind of like letting my mom know like he's all right, like what she's like sort of like mediating the situation. And she has a son too, and she told me at a certain point, she was like, Enzo, your mom is losing her mind. Like, you can't do this, and like you have to just go home. And she was like, you told me, like, or she was like, she told me that she's not going to send you to a boarding school anymore. Like, I don't know if that's true or not, but like you just have to go home, because like being a mom, she's like, I couldn't imagine what your mom's going through right now.
you can't do this to your mom.
Yeah, and so I go home. I listened to her, and I was like, okay. So I go home, and I start trying to go back to school and whatnot, and just live in try and pick up where I left off. Basically in school, obviously, like I go back to high school. Like it was known throughout the school, like this kid is a maniac. Like he got sent somewhere, he's back now. And like people, they'd be like, dude, you are insane, bro, like da, da, da. And I was like, but then like really by that point, all my friends I was close with, basically they were already done with school. Like they had either dropped out, or they just decided not to go, or whatever the case may be, or maybe they were old enough to not have to go to school anymore. So I had the option of like hanging out with them all day or going to school. And like at school, I'm like seeing all the friends that I grew up with originally, right? And like nobody's hanging out with me or wants to talk to me or whatever. And they're like, this kid's a troublemaker. So like the school lasted probably like a couple weeks. Like I tried to go, and I just was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. So just like completely aborted mission on school. And so then I was just with my friends, and basically like their activity of like delinquency or whatever it was, it like accelerated when I was gone. So there was like a roughly 6-month period where I was missing, right? And they were still doing all the things that
They were
we were doing.
escalating in their own things. Okay.
100%. Yeah, they were on a trajectory that was like leading them towards even crazier things. And so I come home, and I'm forced to like, well, not forced, but like I felt that I had to like prove that I was not like softened by this experience. And so like I was already the youngest one of the group. And basically like I liked being the young one, because they were like, dude, you're just going to go to daycare if you get caught. Like you're the one that needs to do this. So like you need to hold this, or you need to go and like be the one to drive, or what, like, and so I'm like the fall guy. And so I was like, now doing like all this other stuff, like I'm still going to be helping you guys out with all of that. So I would earn respect by doing that, because like everybody loves that guy that's going to like take the blame, And so I basically just jumped on board with them, and things got way out of control, like way fast. And so this is where like the drug use got really bad. And so by that time, like pills were around, like started taking pills. I really noticed like, gosh, I remember the first day I ever took one, I didn't feel the effect. I stood up off the couch and then it all hit me. The thrill of just the lifestyle, or if it was like the drugs, but I definitely loved the drugs too. And so I ended up just getting way bad on these pills because of course I did find them for a really low price. And so I've taken a lot of pills. Like it didn't seem like it slowly escalated. It was like boom, like 0 to 100 really quick. Like the weed escalated slowly and surely, and then the pills kind of came and like boom, like right away. Yeah, I was like, I love this. Kind of started like a blur past that point. Like I was taking pills and getting in more trouble, and like eventually I came home one day and my mom like, she kind of was hip to what was going on. Like she was like, dude, you are really like getting into something. She told me like, if you are gonna be living like this, like you can't be living at my house. And I would always say like, I don't know if she'll actually do it. Like I don't know if she'll actually kick me out, whatever. And then like one day I came home and all my things were in boxes just in the center of my room, like just boxed up, like pre-packaged, like ready for you to just get out of here. And I was like, dang, calling my dad. And the next morning I slept on a mattress with no blanket. Like I grabbed a blanket from the couch, just knocked out on the mattress. And like I called my dad in the morning and I'm like, dude, like, yeah, I need to come stay with you. Like, and he was like, all right. So he came and picked me up, and he lived in a part of Seattle that was further north. It was probably a 40-minute drive in the car north of the area where I was hanging out with all my friends. So he wasn't in a great financial situation at the time. So I was like he was loading boxes in the UPS trucks overnight, like through the night shift. And so he and I we move into this I move in with him to this little situation. And like, it was just like, that was where I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, here's like a real life consequence that like is impossible to ignore, but I still kind of pushed it away because I'm having so much fun. Like, and I'm getting high all the time. I'm not thinking about any kind of like real thing. So anyway, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I would say this is my first love. Like she basically was like with me throughout this whole craziness. And like we were taking pills together, of course, right? And so I was like, all right, as long as I got her, like I'm okay. And so I just continued to kick the can down the road, like using these drugs, living this lifestyle. And then one day she just leaves me. And I'm like, all right, like it was a painful enough thing to just make me really realize like, all right, this is where like it's not about fun anymore. Like this drug use isn't about like having fun or like living a certain lifestyle or anything like that. Like this is how I'm gonna avoid feeling this like pain. Because mind you, like I'm in this like really rough situation like with my dad. Like we're not in like a sweet area, and like it's a really small place, and like it's just like a really rough time. And it was compounded by my girlfriend leaving me, and then it all hit, and I realized like this is where it changed. It wasn't something that we shouldn't have been together in the first place anyway. Like I had like managed to like finagle her from her previous boyfriend, and so it wasn't something that was supposed to happen anyway, you know. And something that I realized is like, now looking back, I'm really grateful for that experience, because there's a lot of things that I'm grateful for about her. Because first of all, it let me realize like you can love somebody that's not your family. You know, like it's possible. So I experienced that. The other thing I learned is like, do something incorrectly in the beginning. It's kind of hard sometimes to like make that work out long term. And it wasn't the right way to begin the relationship anyway, you know. And so like I really did like finagle my way into that relationship and like separate her from her boyfriend, like in a really selfish way. And like it wasn't, and anyway, like living crazy anyway. So it's kind of hard to like write that ship together anyway. Sometimes you have to get that done on your own. But there's a lot of other reasons too that I'm just really grateful for her. And like part of it, you know, there's even more things, but transition was really where it went from like having fun and just forget about the consequence, whatever, to like now this is a painful moment. And I've never felt pain inside my like emotional pain in that kind of like sharp way. Like, you know, it was like physically and it hurt. Like, and so I was like, all right, like all I know is just pop pills back.
So
All I
you've
know is
gone
just take
from
pills.
just sort of being rebellious and partying and doing whatever you want, and now it's moved to, like, self-medicating.
Yeah, and it probably was self-medicating before, but I was masking it with like, this is just fun. This is like, and stuff. But now it was clear to me, like, you've really, like, you got a reason to do this now, and it was hard to ignore that. So at that point, that was where things like started really slipping and like really getting away from me. Just remember like making crazy missions because like my dad's living so far outside of the city that like I'm like taking these bus rides to get all the way across the whole city to take drugs, like just to get across and like doing these crazy things. I was so broke too at the time, like I would never have any kind of like, I don't know, there's like 100 stories I could tell that you're just like, gosh, like what the hell, like, but that was where it really got like out of control. And so like one thing leads to another, right? And so I'm like taking pills and like taking other drugs and like it got more serious and like that kind of propelled me into like a point where I would think to myself sometimes, like, why am I doing this? Like, what is all this? Like, do I really want to do this? And then they would go away because it's like, well, if I'm gonna undo all this, like, I gotta really. There's gonna be like it's like quite a process, right? And so I just keep kicking the can down the road. And then one day, I end up in jail, and my mom is like, hey, like, I'll bond you out if you go to treatment. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, I'll do it. Because I knew at that point, like, all right, I've had this thought a couple times, like it's getting away from me. This is like a little bit crazy, so I agree. And I ended up going to a detox facility in California and, detoxing off the pills and then going back actually to the same boarding school that I'd run from, except they had an adult program at the time. So I ended up going to this adult program and I finished my high school there because high school was, gone to the wind at that point. And so I finished high school there and like spend probably like around 6 months there. And then I end up going to back home. And same exact thing as before when I came home. Like my friends had continued on the route that they were going on. I was gone for a little while. I felt like I had to like catch up, you know? And so that's exactly what I did right away. Everything went to the wind. Whatever sobriety I had was completely gone, like pretty quickly. Like at first I was like, maybe I'll just smoke weed. But of course, like the pills come around and in no time, I'm just like popping pills again. So I end up doing that. And it kind of just continued that way for probably another year or two, close to 2 years. It's the same 2 years that seemed like 20 years, it happened so fast, but it went so slow at the same time. Like a month would take so long to go by, but there'd be so much that happened in that month. And it's just this crazy cycle. Eventually what happened was I ended up getting into more serious drugs, right? Of course, and I ended up overdosing. And so this is in 2017. I was about 19. I was almost 20 years old. Well, fentanyl had just become a thing and it was like kind of coming out into the street and I didn't know what it was, but I just knew you can get super high from taking it and just like it's a painkiller. So I end up starting to take it and I overdose. I leave against medical advice and then later that week I overdose again. So that time was far more serious. Basically how that went was my friend asked me if I wanted to go to the store with him. And thank God I said sure, because if not, I don't know what would have happened. But I end up going to the store. By the time we get to the store, I'm too high. I can't like go out in the store. You just go ahead. So he comes back, he goes to the store, runs an errand, goes and gets some food, sits down with his girlfriend and eats, and then comes back to the car and finds me foaming at the mouth. And so it was normal to fall asleep and just pass out in any situation, right? But like the foam at the mouth was not normal. So he's like, this is concerning. So he has a warrant for his arrest at the time. And he's like, I can't call the ambulance because the police are going to show up. Like, there's just no way I'm going to do that. So he calls his sister, who's right down the street. She pulls up right away and basically saved my life. So she started performing CPR on me. He knew that she was CPR trained. She pulls me out of the car. She's like beating my heart for me. So my friend she shows up, tells my friend like, dude, you got to get out of here, calls the ambulance. And then they start performing CPR. Well, what ended up happening was I ended up going into medically induced coma for 3 days and then spent a month in the hospital after that. learning to walk again, learning to use my hands and like read a analog clock. And I can't really overstate like the pain that was like. So the emotional pain was obviously huge from all the things that have gone on before. And then like this was now like a physical consequence to my body, right? Like my body is suffering hard. There was like major atrophy in my hands, and like it like everything curled over because it just tightened up my whole body, and like my legs, my toes were like bent over, and like I just like again, I just can't overstate how painful that whole experience was. I remember when I was in the boarding school, one of the staff told me, dude, you better slow down, because I know a kid who ended up waking up with a catheter. And I'm like, what's a catheter? He explained what a catheter was. And he's like, it is painful. And I was like, dude, I'm not like, I'm always going to be able to handle the drugs. Like, I'm not going to be like, so like, I thought I was like exempt from that.
Yeah. You can't scare kids. They think they're invincible. Like, you just can't.
Not a calculation that they have.
Mhm.
Like,
Right.
and that's why it's
Right.
so dangerous. Like when they're playing with these drugs, because it's like, the downside risk is so huge, but they don't consider it. It's
They
like,
don't understand the magnitude of what they're dealing with, right?
no,
Mm.
and they're far more confident than like they're so confident that everything, and like I'm a perfect example of this. Like I was sure it wouldn't happen. So then I wake up with a catheter, and also additionally like 100 tubes tied to my mouth, nose, face. You know, I got tubes in every arm, and that was when I was like, okay, like this is I might not make it. Like that was when that like confidence and like brashness really went out the window for me. I'm not going to make it to my elderly years if I continue living like this. It's not working. There were two people who came to visit me when I was in the hospital. She was the one who told me, dude, you have to go home. Like your mom is freaking out. So she came to visit me, and I'm just like beyond grateful for her. First of all, I want to say, because like there were times that she would call me when I was in like my worst, like the worst that it got. And she would be like, she would say, you look terrible. Like, what is wrong with you? Like your face is completely skinny. Like what you're like, she would buy me like a bus ticket, the same one that would get from Seattle to Portland. And I would show up down there, and like she would help me get clean. But I remember another friend who I had grown up with. Basically, I was like, I just can't live this way. You know, I just can't do it. A whole miracle that happened after that. So I finally was able to walk from the hospital, and I like can't walk upstairs quickly. And like I was certainly unable to run. Like there were like real consequences that like stuck with me, or even the event. So like I was forced to always think about it. My dad had come up from, by this point, my dad had moved and went down to San Diego. And so I was living alone in the area where we previously were. He was renting a room, and my dad was like, hey, ask the landlord, like, are you able to, like, is that cool if my son comes and moves down here? Because like he's in a situation up in Seattle, like it might just be better for him to be down here. Are you cool with that? And the landlord was like, sure. So like he arrived home from Seattle from like visiting me in the hospital, because they're telling him like, dude, your kid might not be able to walk, or he might be quadriplegic even. So he comes to visit me, and he thought that he was going to come to a funeral, honestly, was what he told me, but goes back home to San Diego where he was staying, and there's just a room available. So anyway, I moved into that room, and that was really where like life kind of like took off for me. That was because at this point I had decided like I'm done with all this. Like I can't do it. I just can't do it anymore. And so I'm living down in San Diego, and I ended up having to go to like a partial hospitalization program, like for a rehab. And then things just really started to like fall in line. Like I got a simple job. So I was like a cashier at like a retail clothing store. So I thought to myself, like, all right, I'm trying to get life together now. Like, how am I going to do all this? Because I've been living this crazy way for like 5 years. I can't, like, I don't know, like, it's such a different lifestyle, right? Like, it's so different that, like, I was like, how am I going to get used to all this? And so,
Like, I don't even know how to live like this
yeah, like,
normal days and stuff, right?
it's just like to live a normal life is such a change from what was previously going on. In the wilderness, in the boarding school, all this, I tried to push it away. Like I did my best to just ignore it and like disregard it. You want to talk about problems, like I'm not dealing with that. Like and like all of it came rushing back. Like it came flooding back to me once I decided like, oh my gosh, I want to live a good life. Like how am I going to do all this? And so like a couple things that I can just off the top of my head say that I took from all that, the wilderness, right? One major one, being present. Like we already went over that. Just think about what you're doing right now. Like don't think about 4 years in the future. Don't worry about 2 years just focus now on like what task are you doing today? Yeah, like what task are you doing today and what task are you doing right now? That was major, right? And so then the other one was identifying an emotion that you're having and like just taking a moment to like identify that. So in the wilderness, they had they had this format for talking about your feelings called like the I feel statement. And I'm sure a lot of people, I'm sure, like the I feel statement was something that I had never ever heard about, and I don't really remember anybody asking me like, Enzo, how are you feeling about this situation right now? It never was like brought up, right? That led to me never asking myself like, how am I feeling, right? Like I just get a feeling and then it just takes me for a ride, metaphorical ride with that feeling, like whether it's anger or whether it's like frustration or anxiety, like it just controls me, right? And I don't even know what happened. Now I'm like thinking like, gosh, how am I, because I'm having a lot of feelings, right? Like there's a lot of like things going on back home. I got friends getting killed. I got friends going to prison for a long time. Like, and I'm like, dude, like the friend who called me and told me the police are at his house, like he overdosed shortly after I left on Thanksgiving Day. Like rest in peace to his soul. And I'm like losing my mind, you know what I mean? Because I'm hearing about all this craziness that's happening. And so I basically just said like, gosh, let me just like identify that and let me just sit with that. Like, let me like figure out what feeling it is that I'm having right now.
You start using the skills, all these seeds that were planted start to grow now.
I end up using all these tools, right? And these like skills that I'm like learning, and it put me at such an advantage. I was flying through, like getting a promotion. I like just doing perfectly fine in school. And previously I'm like dropping out of school and like not doing well. Anyway, started doing like acing classes and everything. I was working like 60-hour weeks, and eventually I get put in a class where they asked me to reach out to somebody who's in the industry that you want to be in. So I called the owner of the program that I ran from and then went back to later on. And I was going to ask him for a job. And then he goes, hey, Enzo, why don't you just come out here and work out here and like get a sense of it for yourself? And I'm like, dude, like I was going to ask you the same thing, like for sure. But I just got a promotion, other job. So I said, give me a year and I'm going to do this job and then I'll come out there. So after a year goes by, I walk in for my first day and the first kid that I meet is from Seattle. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy. So I knew right away, I'm like, this is just the perfect spot for me. And I ended up falling in love with the job. And so like the same things applied, like just use all the skills that they taught me before and like show up early. And if they ask for help, to stay late, like stay late. And so I'm like taking initiative. I'm like working hard, got a promotion right away, of course, because I'm getting along with all the kids perfectly fine. Like the shift that I was running was operating super smoothly. And I'm like training other staff how to deal with how to manage the relationships that you have with these kids, and like also all the managerial stuff, like, scheduling and whatnot. But like mostly it was like training staff how to like build a relationship with the kid, how to deal with conflict when that kid is having an issue or a need, like, whatever happens. And so I just fell in love with doing that, and it ended up working out really great. And so what happened was I realized after a certain amount of time, like these kids are going home and they're having the same speed bumps that I was going home, and completely off track. Once I get home, like do okay in the program.
An environment like that back to your old environment, it just doesn't.
It's hard. Yeah. I mean, you're in the spot where it all started. And so same family, same friends, same situation. A lot of them were going home doing great in the program and then blowing it like out the gate, go back home. And like some of them end up getting it together after a little while. And I'm like super proud of those kids for sure. But then like some of them just go off track and they continue down this route. Right. And so I figured like there's got to be an opportunity to continue helping these kids after they leave these programs. And so recently what I've been doing is, for the last little while, is like doing mentorship for the kids once they go home from these programs. So yeah,
that transition
exactly.
time is so important. Like that's where people fall through the cracks, right there.
It can be mitigated is the thing. Like it can, if there's like a little bit of accountability, right? Somebody who's in the kid's life, who's like encouraging good behaviors and not encouraging bad behaviors, right? Like it goes a long way, because the kid's brain at that age is so susceptible to rewards from their peers. Like, and so if you can have a relationship and create that relationship with a kid, or if a kid has a relationship with somebody that they respect and they look up to, there's meaningful milestones that can happen, right? And so
because you can have that influence, that positive influence.
Exactly, that positive influence. And it would have worked for me when I was a kid because I was so hard-headed. It's been working out lately, and I'm loving it. And it's just like it's a thrill to be doing that. And so I find myself now super grateful, and just I can't believe the circle that I've been through. Mhm.
So we'll put your contact information, if you want us to, in the description of the video
Mhm.
in case someone needs that kind of service, or in
Yeah.
case like a parent looking for something like that for their kid. I want to say before we wrap this up is you're like a perfect example of what I talk about is like using your powers for the good. That same kid you were, that willful, independent, strategic thinker, is
Mhm.
still the same you. It's just you just put it in a different direction, because as soon as you decided, then you started using that same way of thinking, and now it's working for you in this direction.
It's a matter of just where are you going to apply your energy. You know, like you have a certain amount of energy in your body and your brain that you can use. And it's going to be, you can use it in one way or the other. If you apply it in the good way, the result is usually a good thing, you know? And so
Right, and you're
that's,
perfect example of that putting your mind to something and just deciding, "No, this is what I'm gonna do," and just getting very strategic about exactly how to do it and making your
right,
mind.
right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, and now you're gonna help so many other people.
The last thing I'll say is that there's a double infinite good in doing this kind of work. And like the one side of the infinite is that you can have an infinite amount of suffering on one side, right? Like living in a negative situation. And then on the other side, like you can suffer forever, right? And your family suffers afterward, and it's terrible. But then on the positive side, what happens is you can go and live positively, and we have no clue what these kids are going to be able to do in their lives in the future, and how much joy they're going to have, and how much joy their family will have, and maybe they'll have kids that will do incredible things at one point. And so it's a double infinite process that
It
is
multiplies itself whichever
infinitely.
direction you're going. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
right.
And so that's
Mhm.
why I love to do it. I never feel like I work. I honestly feel like I just live, and I just enjoy life every day. I can't express how grateful I am for everything in life.
It's
You know?
amazing. So, guys, if you're watching, we'll put Enzo's contact below, and you will also be able to listen to Enzo's story from his mom's point of view, because we're going to get her story later today. We're going to record that. So if you're interested in hearing this same story from another perspective, then you definitely want to check that out. And I'll link it up here for you so you can see that next.